Well, welcome to this video, and I hope you like it. If you do, click the like button, hit subscribe, and share with a friend. And just another quick sort of rant off the top of my head here. I'll try to get back into more of the informational ones, and I'll try to edit and post some of the things I've already recorded in the past and just haven't gotten to. But right now we sit about a week out from the election. Some places have started mail-in voting or early voting and things like that. I plan to go in person on Tuesday. Not sure exactly what's going to happen. Not really looking forward to this election cycle. What prompted this is I just, it's more or less my lunchtime right now. I'm working from home, and we just got a thing about, they're worried about there being rioting next week on election day and maybe the 2 days after. Just don't know where things are going. We live in weird times. It's like living through Armageddon. I was born in 1968, which was kind of a chaotic year, and this looks like a chaotic year set to rival that. They didn't have the COVID thing going on in 68, but they had a couple of assassinations. Let's hope nothing like that happens. There's been a lot of weirdness. People seem very divided. To some extent, I'd have to say that not everybody who plans to vote for Trump, but there's a certain hardcore following he's got that's just like a cult that's kind of scary. And, I really do worry that there will be rioting. I get the feeling that if Trump wins, we'll have more rioters in the streets. All the same people that decided it was a good idea to protest when he got elected the first time. All the people that were rioting during all the different Black Lives Matters things. I think the pandemic makes it worse because a lot of the people are just generally frustrated and looking for an outlet for that frustration. I think that's part of why all the rioting happened in the first place. People are tired of being on lockdown. People are tired of wearing masks. People are tired of, being unemployed or whatever other problems they've got going on at the moment. They're just tired and frustrated with the situation, and they're venting that frustration. I also think that if Biden wins, we're going to have issues. Trump has stated that he may not leave peacefully, and he's kind of called into question the election already. And I think that we will have a smaller group of people that are better armed rioting, instead of all these, so-called Antifa people that are running around throwing bricks during the Black Lives Matter protests that had rioting. We're going to have people, running around with AR-15s, all these little tiki torch militia group types out there. I just, I don't think that represents the majority of people in this country or the majority of the people in either party. But I would say there's a hardcore minority, especially on the right now. Like I said, Trump has sort of united a cult following, and that cult following, like I said, not all the people who voted for him, not going there, but there is a certain group of people who were just like, kind of blindly following the guy, and anything he says must be right. They have no critical thought into it, and they're very emotional and that their persona has sort of bought into his persona. Don't know of a better way to put it, but I mean, it's a very, I hate using Hitler as an example because it automatically ties into racism and anti-Semitism and all of that, but he has the same sort of cult following that a Hitler or a Mussolini or Napoleon, to pick a less polarizing figure, one of these leaders had. You can argue they're great leaders, you can argue they're diabolical leaders. That's not where I'm trying to go here. I'm just trying to say that, he's got that very devoted following that I've never seen any other politician have in my lifetime. I mean, nobody ever painted the side of the barn or their barn with a presidential candidate other than Trump in my lifetime. And there's many examples of that when you drive through rural Pennsylvania or Ohio, where people literally posted Trump on the side of huge buildings. People flying flags, and people don't have just one sign, they have 20 or 30 of them lining their entire property line. I haven't seen that kind of just total emotional buy-in to any other candidate in my lifetime. Of course, him having that type of support doesn't necessarily mean he's a good president, but at the same time, you've just got to understand it is what it is. Those people exist, and those people would probably go nuts if he loses. Like I said, at the same time, if Trump wins, all the people that were out throwing bricks during these riots in various cities where you had police officers shoot black people and other things like that, sometimes not even the same city, which always kind of struck me as kind of weird. It's like, somebody gets shot in Seattle or someplace like that, and you've got a riot breaks out in some other city in the Midwest, or vice versa. They got riots in Portland because somebody got shot in Missouri or Nebraska or something, and it just always seemed kind of strange to me. It's like, police force over here has somebody who does something wrong, so you're going to attack a different police force somewhere else and, burn out police cars and throw bricks at cops that had nothing to do with it. But I do see that if Trump wins, that there's going to be a lot of civil unrest in a lot of those cities. And it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for anybody. And, it ties into so many things in this country just being so polarized right now. And, it really does seem almost like we're headed towards a civil war at times. What if Trump loses and refuses to leave? Will the military split? Will the so-called deep state, the career government officials try to enforce the will of the people? Will there be a splinter group within the government or the military that backs Trump? Will we fracture and go into full-blown civil war? Who knows? We always seem to think of ourselves as being a lot more stable than other countries in the world, but a lot of countries in the world that have gone to shit thought they were really stable right before they went to shit. So, don't know, but it ties into religion and environmental policy and human rights and so many other things we've become so politically divided on. And I try to keep things about the argument rather than the side or the people. I mean, we've seen some crazy things in the past 4 years. Shortly after Trump was elected, he backed that guy, and I think it was Alabama, that was running for, I can't remember if it was Senate or Representatives or something. He was a Republican, but he had this reputation of like cruising the shopping malls trying to pick up teenage girls. And I mean, we're talking a guy older than me. Like, he had a decades-long history of being interested in really young girls. And there was another politician, I want to say the governor of that state, actually came out and said that they believed the allegations against him, but it was still better to elect him than to elect a Democrat. I mean, that's how crazy polarized we are right now. It's like we would rather, there are people who are so against the other political party that they would rather elect a criminal or a sexual predator from within their own party than to let the other party win. And that's just crazy. And you know, this is kind of off topic, but it ties in, like I said, the environmental policies, everything else. You've got all these things about fracking and, you know, the coal industry and, you know, the Paris Climate Accord and all these other things tied into this. And, you know, it's just crazy that we're reaching a point where we can't discuss our differences or debate them openly. And people are just so locked into their opposing positions, and they're so into winning at all costs. And, you know, neither side is hearing the other one's arguments. Nobody's trying to come up with a good solution. They're just trying to win. It doesn't even matter whether what they're winning is right. It just matters winning. It's all about just power and control, and, you know, the people and the planet are being left behind. And I always try to remind people when it comes to the environment that, you know, some things are a little bit closer to you and some things are a little bit farther away from you. But environmentalism is actually about people. You know, it's about people dying of cancer. It's about people having a better life or a worse life. It's about people having, you know, clean food, clean water, clean air. You know, your kid not having asthma, your grandparents not having COPD. It's about so many things that are tied in. It's about your health and your well-being. The better the planet is, the better you are. You know, we can't live without food, water, and air. We should protect these things. And people just don't think about that. People are just, you know, I've had some really frustrating discussions with some people. You know, you can mention polluting the ocean, and you know, it affects, you know, fish stocks and everything else. There's this ripple effect. You're polluting the estuaries, and that's where the little fish grow up, and the little benthic organisms that the bigger fish eat, and all that, and that affects the whole food chain. And, you know, all these people rely on, you know, a large portion of the world relies on fish for their daily supply of protein. A lot of Asia, and they're like, oh, I don't care, I don't like fish, I eat hamburgers. Well, how are you gonna feel about your hamburgers when everybody in China and Japan and all these other countries that rely heavily on fish don't have any more fish, and they're also eating hamburgers? And, you know, a pound of cheap hamburger goes up from being maybe $2 a pound to being like $25 a pound. How you gonna feel about it then? You know, when meat stops being cheap because the supply can no longer meet demand, because all of the people that were relying on the oceans no longer can, so now they're tapping into your meat supply and driving the price through the roof, where, it's the American cuisine for the average person is going to be, more reliant on things like tofu, just because meat being unbearably expensive. Something that you only eat a real steak on rare occasions, because what would be considered a cheaper sirloin steak now would be something expensive that you'd only splurge on every now and then, like a fancy lobster dinner or something. People just don't see the cause and effect. People are just, I don't know where I'm going with this. Just sad that people can't get along and people can't rationally discuss their problems and try coming up with a good solution that makes everybody happy. Not every compromise is a good compromise. Sometimes picking the middle spot between two opposing sides just gives you a solution that makes nobody happy or possibly accomplishes nothing. But at the same time, we've just become so antagonistic about things, and it's gotten to be like, in a weird way, like a football game where you have two opposing fandoms, and they think the players on the other team are all drug addicts and horrible people and cheaters or whatever, and the guys on their team can't do any wrong. And it's all about their team winning and who has the best record and who makes it to the playoffs. And people are getting to be like that with political parties. It used to be you had conservatives and liberals within both parties, but it's become where the Democrats are by default liberal, the Republicans are by default conservative, and there are no moderates left for the most part. For somebody to win the primaries, which is a fairly new concept, which I think kind of destroyed any semblance of a reason for the two-party system, because you have to be, to a certain point, a liberal to win a Democratic primary. You have to be, to a certain extent, a conservative to win a Republican primary. And then in the general election, you've got a choice between black and white, when everybody's point of view is basically a whole rainbow in between. And we've just become more and more polarized. We're more and more drawn to either black or white. There's only a few people like me, I'm not affiliated with any political party, that's just kind of left in the middle, wondering what the hell happened to all the sane people trying to work out what's rational, besides just, there's two versions of reality, and you either buy into one or you buy into the other, and people are just, it's all about their side winning, to the exclusion of everything else. And it's just a really sad state of affairs. I don't know how to fix it. I really don't. It's just, it seems to be screwed up from the bottom up. Parents raise their kids to be the same way that they are. Conservatives raise their kids to be conservative. Liberals raise their kids to be liberals. They don't really, put forth any effort towards critical thinking or looking at any other point of view. It's almost like being born into a religion. If you were born to a family that's Catholic, chances are you're going to be Catholic. If you're born into a family that's Jewish, chances are you're going to be Jewish, or Baptist or Buddhist or whatever. And, it seems to be the same with politics now, but we're narrowed down to these two big groups, and the majority of people seem to be, very close to the extremes now. It's just, don't know. Don't know if educating young people will help. Don't know if educating the adults will help. I just don't know. I'm not sure that people's ears are open and they're listening to other ideas. People tend to choose what news they listen to, and they tend to choose what mainstream media and social media they follow, often to the exclusion of hearing any other opinions. It all started with Rush Limbaugh. He found a following, and then there were other copycats, both liberal and conservative, that started these echo chambers. And people tend to they choose a side, and they tend to gravitate towards these echo chambers, and they only hear this one opinion just reinforced over and over and over again, and they just follow along with it. There's very little room for dissenting voices, and it's really hard being in the middle, because I've often said, you try picking a position in the middle, you get attacked by both sides. It's really hard being a moderate or a centrist in this world. You're going to get attacked. It's like the story that came out a little while back about, I think it was Gloria Steinem, one of the feminist leaders from the, I think she might have gone back into the 60s even, but definitely during the 70s. She was all about women's rights and all this, but they found, old things she had said about transgender people or something. So, because she wasn't pro-transgender, she wasn't liberal enough to speak at a university somewhere, and basically got deplatformed, which is just, it's ridiculous. And it's also ridiculous to, not allow people to evolve over time. Abraham Lincoln is one of our greatest presidents because he did evolve over time. If you look at some of the earlier statements he had, even though he was always anti-slavery, he was, by modern standards, pretty much a racist, which was fairly common back then. That's just how people were raised. Those were the beliefs that were instilled to them when they were a child, and they grew up with it. But as time progressed, and even during the Civil War itself, as black people actually joined the military and accomplished things, his opinion of black people changed with time. And that's the sign of being a good president that really made him one of our greatest presidents, is the fact that he could adapt over time and change his opinion and change his point of view based on new information and new experiences. And that's one of the things that's missing. And nowadays, they attack people for being wishy-washy, and there's all kinds of crazy things. There's a local election where they're attacking the one guy. Well, he said before he got elected that he's not just always going to side with Nancy Pelosi, and then they're pointing out, well, he voted with Nancy Pelosi 90% of the time. Probably most of your Republicans did too, because most of your votes are procedural. Nobody really knows that. It's just, they vote on whether to listen to somebody speak. They vote on whether to take a break. Most of your votes are procedural. Therefore, most of them everybody agrees on. It's, do we pay this bill? Do we pay that bill? Do we take a break for lunch? Do we bring up this? Do we let this guy speak about that? Do we vote on this? Do we vote on that? It's, there's a lot of procedural stuff that goes on in Congress or even your local town council. go visit your town council and see how it works, and you'll kind of realize, it's like they kind of vote on a lot of things that are just procedural. That's why you can point out that anybody votes most of the time with any other person in Congress, just because most of the votes are procedural. If they don't, it probably means they just kept their mouth shut and didn't vote at all. But it's just a strange world we live in, and it's a strange year among many strange years here in 2020. Sometimes I feel like we're on about the 15th horseman of the apocalypse or something. It's just, I'm like, it's like, this happened? Huh. Which horseman are we on now? But it's crazy. And I'm just hoping that everybody stays safe and things start turning around for the better, and hopefully things don't go haywire on election day, and hopefully whoever wins, they win decisively, and nobody protests and nobody riots in the street. And I know that's probably not what's going to happen, but here's wishing for the best anyway. See you on the next one. Well, I hope you found that video informative. Hopefully it made you think, and please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't done that already, and check out the video that should be appearing somewhere around me here, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thanks.